Okay, so we've got a 2012 Mazda 3S. We're doing rear brakes, rotors and pads. So you're gonna need, first of all, I've got a 7mm Allen key on a ratchet. I use a flathead screwdriver to take this clip off. And you're also gonna need a 14mm that holds on the bracket itself. So you want to start by taking this clip off. I find you can grab it up here, and it's just under a little bit of spring tension. And then you can just work it off on the bottom here. And then that's that off. My pads come with this as a new piece, so I'm not going to need to keep that. So once you've got that off, you take your 7mm Allen key, and there is the sliders for the caliper. There's one here, and there's also a lower one down here. You want to take those out. First of all, there's a little dust cap that goes on the back here. I have already gone ahead and pried that out with a screwdriver. That just keeps stuff from getting in there. So you take this and remove your slider bolts.
And the same on the bottom.
And then once they're almost all the way out, I find that they don't always exactly pop out. So you can just take a screwdriver and kind of push on them right here, and that will pop it out. You don't need to take them all the way out at this point yet. So the e-brake is off, I should mention. And now that I've got those off, I can work the caliper off. It might be a little bit stuck, so just sort of work it off. It'll take a little bit of doing, but you'll be able to get it off. Just work it from the top and the bottom, and that will eventually pry it off. Your pad might come with it, but that's just kind of the nature of this sometimes. And there it goes. So now you've got the caliper off, and you've got the two lines. So this is your parking brake cable right here, and this is your actual brake hose. So you can just set that out of the way for now. I find it's just okay like that because there's not too much weight on it. And you can go ahead and take your pads out if they haven't already fallen out. So this is the inner pad. You can tell because it has the spring clip on the top. So these will just pop out if they're not seized in. And this is the outer pad. It's just smooth, no clip on the top. You can see there's still a little bit of meat left on mine, but I figured it was time to replace them. So once you've got that off, there's two bigger bolts that are 14mm in the back here, and that will take this bracket off, and that will allow you to take the rotor off. The rotor sometimes will be stuck on, I should say most of the time will be seized on. So last night I went ahead and jacked up the car and sprayed in all of the lug holes here and around the hub with penetrating oil, and let it sit overnight, and that helps to loosen it up. I've already done the other side, and the other side just came off with a few hits with the hammer. So I'm going to go ahead now and loosen up these two bolts to take off the bracket. So there's the bolt there. You can see 14 millimeter, just a normal bolt. And they'll be the same for the top and the bottom. So there's the other bolt, same. Once you get the bracket off, you can see this is where the actual pads sit, is in here. So you want to clean that up, wire brush or sandblast ideally. And you can paint it if you want, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to clean it up nice and put it back on. So now that I've got the bracket off, I can set the caliper down here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit. First of all, I'm going to try and hit on just the hat of the rotor right here and try and knock it loose, and if that doesn't work, then I'll end up hitting on the face of the rotor here. But if you're going to be keeping the rotors, you don't want to hit on the face of them here, because that will make them useless. Just like that, the rotor pops off and you're able to take it off. So now that you have that off, you want to take and clean up the hub here, all around here and on the face. And I like to just clean up behind it too. You can see all the rust that comes off. Just while you're in here, you might as well clean it up a little bit. Okay, so I've had to switch cameras because the other one died. But what I've done is I have cleaned up the hub, put anti-seize on the back side of it, and I've put my new rotor on, which I went ahead and painted the hat of it here, just to prevent rust. I put 2 lug nuts on it, and that holds the rotor up while you're putting the pads in, and allows you to put the pads in more easier. I've also put the bracket on, which is the same as taking it off, and I've cleaned that up with a wire brush. So the next step now is to push back the piston. So I went to the local hardware store and I rented a tool that they have to push the pistons back in. This is the tool here. So basically these 2 dots go into the piston, and this pushes against the other side of the caliper and allows you to twist the piston back in, because with this style of caliper that has the integrated parking brake, you can't just compress the piston straight back in, it has to twist back in. So that's where this tool comes in handy. Okay, now I have the piston pushed back in, so it's flush with this rubber boot here. I don't know if you can, yeah, you should be able to see that. So right here, it's flush. So now I can go ahead and, well, first I'm going to pull the slider pins out and make sure they're free and moving. So this one doesn't have much grease on it. There should be a little bit of grease on here, so I'm going to go ahead and add some new grease to these. I've added just a little bit of dedicated brake grease on there. It's kind of purple, and that helps the caliper slide, and that way you get even clamping force on both of your pads. So now I'm going to take the slider and put it back in its little rubber boot. I've also done the bottom one already, and now I'm ready to put the new pads in. Some people put anti-seize or a brake grease on the little where the pads slide. I'm not going to in this application, just because it tends to collect dust and salt and rust, and it can sometimes do more harm than good. So in this instance, I'm not going to be putting anything on there. However, I am going to be putting some brake grease on the ears, on the inside ears of the caliper here. Where those go on the back of the pad, I'm going to add a little bit of anti-seize on there, as well as just a little bit on the face of the piston, and that can that'll slow down, or not slow down, but it'll help with brake squeak. So again, this is the inside pad because it has the little spring clip on it. So those just drop into place here. I'm going to go ahead and lay the caliper on the front here to give me a little bit more room to work with. And this is the outer pad, no spring here, and that just sets in like that there. And now we're pretty much ready to put the caliper back on. I'm just going to put a little bit of anti-seize, like I mentioned, on the inside of these ears here. And that's just going to cut down on brake squeal. Okay, now we can go ahead and throw the caliper back on. So it just simply slips over top once you've pressed the piston back in. And then get your 7mm Allen key again. And we're gonna start threading in the slider pins. So what I like to do is just start the top one just till it catches a couple threads, and then move on to the bottom one. Make sure that one's in before I tighten them all the way. And then once they're both started, you can go ahead and zip them right up in there full. So there's that one tight. And that one tight. Just go ahead and double check the bottom here. And that's that. So I mentioned earlier, my kit comes with new little dust caps, so I'll go ahead, put those on there and on the bottom as well. And the last step is to put your new clip on. So this just goes on like that. There's two little holes in the caliper. Put it in one of those on each side. This is probably the trickiest part. You have to hold it in there and try and get this around, especially with the new clips. It's a bit trickier. You can try using pliers or a screwdriver or just your fingers. There we go. So I've got that on there. That's in both the holes on the caliper there and around the ears of the bracket. So there you go. That's how you do rear brakes on a 2012 Mazda 3.